and I am confident of the fact that anything and everything that is essentially surviving can be converted into bringing in business. Revenue is what I thrive upon. Revenue is what I breathe upon. Having conversations with clients is what gives me the booster to survive in life. So that is what, in a nutshell, is for me.
Okay. Hello friends, welcome to the Savan Vora show. So today we have one of the very famous name in startup world in co-working managed offices space. The name is enough, is investor to many startups, and also he runs co-working across almost 13 cities in India. So yes, we have the founder, co-founder, managing director of DevX. Thank you, Umesh bhai, for giving your time and coming on the show. We welcome you.
Thank you, Savan bhai, for inviting me.
Pleasure. So Umesh bhai, I would ask you, I'd love to listen something on co-working,
Sure.
on DevX, on Ahmedabad, because
That's where you're born from.
Yeah, 100%. So my first question is on Ahmedabad. What makes Ahmedabad special for startups?
Well, it didn't earlier, but it does now. First of all, obviously, it's a stronger ecosystem which is getting built here, right? I mean, in the previous days, probably in 2014-15, when India adopted the startup curve, Gujarat was not the first one to do it, and hence we don't have the larger unicorns which were born back in 2014-2015. We don't have the privilege to host them in the state while we speak today. But things changed. Government took a very strong initiative, and then came the startup policy, which was announced in 2016, which predominantly focused on incentivizing or probably providing grants, providing subsidies, providing investments to early stage startups which are coming from or launched by students, and that is where the foundation became stronger. Everybody was aware that from 2016 we cannot catch the bus immediately, because largely it was tech driven startups who were driving the bus, and back then the talent pool, number of companies in the technology segment or domain was very less, and hence we were little lagging behind on that. But the first and foremost thing was the government push and booster that got formation in the year 2016, and that year acted as a foundation year for us as a state to move into the direction of adopting the startup wave. Since then we have grown leaps and bounds. In fact, from 2021 to 2023 we kept on achieving the highest number of startups or the best state award in the startup category across India.
Is it?
So,
okay.
India started ranking different states on the startup matrices, and there are different layers of matrices. One is the number of startups that are formed. Second is the number of startups that have raised subsequent rounds of capital, revenues that are being generated, employees that are being created, employment that has been created, so on and so forth. And in that we kept on ranking at top position since for the last 3 years of duration, which was a strong achievement and testament. So first and foremost, as I mentioned, government was the strong booster for the ecosystem. Second, the reverse brain drain started. So Gujarat has always been a strong exporter of talent pool for larger technology companies, be it in India or be it outside India. All those individuals who were working outside the state started realizing that there's something forming up in the state itself. There's a strong ecosystem which is getting built. Who had the vision to understand that the state is moving in the right direction came back in 2017, 2018 and 2019. Right? Those were the years when you'll see a lot of startups being formed by students, and a lot of startups were formed by people who were living outside Gujarat and started coming back in the state. So that was the second wave, that an experienced talent pool, experienced individuals in their respective domains came back with their experience in the state and starting spreading their understanding of multiple ecosystems outside the Gujarat. So that was the second booster, I would say. Third, which has kept it extremely sustainable up till this point, has been the fact that the investor community, it has been very strong. Unlike US, wherein they believe in giving back to startups, and majority of the millionaires that were formed in US were being formed from the exits of the startups, which was not the case back here. This was all proprietary capital. This was all hard-earned capital of our entrepreneurs of the state. So they never invested into startups because they believed it is very high risky, and the terms of investments also was never to the tune as to the startup can grow. But that investor capital has grown leaps and bounds, and since then there's a lot of capital which gets deployed not only in the state, but from our state there are a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of family offices which invest into startups outside the state as well. There are three strong pillars which has kind of acted as a booster for the startup ecosystem of Ahmedabad, and that is the prime reason why we have grown so much. Even today, when I'm using the word grown so much, we have not yet achieved the mark, and we do not say the fact that we have many unicorns from here, because there's one missing piece in this entire puzzle, which is the talent pool availability. The moment that piece gets solved, we'll have a lot of unicorns, we'll have a lot of ventures building out of the states in future.
So, talent in terms of founders?
No, talent in terms of growing the organization further.
Okay.
It is easier to start and venture here. It is easier to scale an entity here in Gujarat, but it is difficult to scale after a certain point, because for starting a 0 to 100 journey is always driven by founders. You have your core team which is not required to have larger experience in the domain. Then you have founders who are core, hands-on, on ground, day in and day out, which can help you to achieve 0 to 100 CR revenue. The growth or the journey after that is where you need leadership team, where you need your A-level skill set. Largely that is the missing piece in the state, because majority of them have their own businesses, and hence you do not get a cadre or experienced people in your organization when you are looking to grow further. And
True.
There has been historical evidences wherein good number of companies, after reaching a certain scale, have moved on to Bangalore or Mumbai or probably outside India to scale further. So the capital unavailability is not the case. Practices, ease of doing business is not the case. It is that missing piece of talent unavailability at leadership position which pushes them to go outside the state. I think once that gets solved, I think we'll see a lot of ventures, a lot of startups growing and scaling up way beyond the smaller numbers that we are used to seeing it today.
Okay. Yeah, so it was a very good insight. So next question is, how is the city's infrastructure helping startups?
Well, infrastructure, to be honest, I think as a city, we will be the front runner in reaping the benefits that we as a country have been seeing since last decade. When we started the business back in 2017, and we used to stand on our office terrace, the skyline was minimal. I used to see probably one or two larger assets at the eyesight from 11th floor. Today, when I stand on the same terrace floor on 11th floor, there is like just a span of 5 years, I have at least 15-20 towers right in front of my eye. That is the span of growth that we have seen as a city, and we are not growing in one direction. The city is kind of scaling up on all the sides. You will have growth on all the corridors. Fortunately for us, the Prime Minister loves the state, and that brings a lot of eyeballs on the city. The future seems to be decided. The future seems to be pretty much jotted down. We are very much bullish on the fact that we might have Olympics coming in the city, and hence all the planning with respect to infrastructure is quite evident and visible when you are living in the city. The airport, I've seen the airport drastically change from a small terminal to be reaching to a situation to handle 50,000 daily passengers, and now putting in efforts to reach or manage 100,000 daily passengers. That's a massive growth in the last 5 years of time frame, and coming down in the next 5 years of time frame. The streets, or probably the main highway which connects three cities, Ahmedabad, Gandhinagar and Gift City, is so seamless that there are no speed breakers on it. We can probably cover a distance of 20 kilometers, 25 kilometers in less than half an hour time frame. that's the massive growth that we have seen from an infrastructure perspective, and it is still growing. I did not see any day wherein the city is not grown by an inch.
Good. So, what trends are you seeing in Ahmedabad's business environment?
So it has always been a very conducive atmosphere to do business. We keep on saying that Gujarat as a state is very entrepreneurial in nature, and so is Ahmedabad, right? I mean, Ahmedabad happens to be the crux or the core of the entire state, and the ease of doing business or the compliances that are required, the thought process of growing the business has always been very fruitful. So I have grown in the business family, right? I have seen my fathers, my uncles, while I was growing, probably 7 years, 10 years of age, I would have seen them saying bulk discount, cash discount when you're purchasing in bulk, credit period, all these terminologies. If you're not part of business family, you don't get to hear it. And this implies, or this stays true for the entire city and the state. Even if you're not part of a business family, you would have people around you who are entrepreneurs in nature. So there is always a support ecosystem since ages, and that has been the blessing for us. Unfortunately, we do not see that blessing from a startup angle, but if you see it from a traditional business perspective, that is the most thriving factor, I would say, for a state. We probably have been blessed to have a very strong GDP per se. In fact, today while we speak, we have the lowest GSDP to debt ratio as a state. And that is fortunate because we as entrepreneurs have always believed the fact that should be generating wealth, should be generating revenue, which can pay taxes for us to thrive for a longer period. So from a business environment, it is not now, it has historically been the case that the environment is very conducive to do business here. You will always find people to support you at early stages. It was never a stigma earlier, nor it is a stigma now to do a startup here, because the risk taking ability of the society is way higher as compared to our peers or other states, to say so. And fortunately, we see the current largest wealth generators from Gujarat only. The highest returns being generated by the stock companies in the last 5 years has been predominantly from Gujarat. So that itself is a testimony to that fact, and that we believe and we nurture the value of relationship. We respect our vendors, we respect our shareholders, and we respect our people that are surrounding us.
True. So how does Ahmedabad compare to other cities in India for entrepreneurs?
As I said, it is extremely conducive atmosphere. If somebody today is looking to start something, I don't see a better place to start from. There might be subsidies, there might be policies in some other states to being advantageous to some industries. But as an entrepreneur, your headquarters should be in Ahmedabad, because that's where you find a lot of local ecosystem to support you, to help you in difficult times, as well as thrash you in positive times, so that you're not above the sky and doing and speaking something else.
So Umesh bhai, I need something on DevX as well. So my next questions are on DevX. So first question is obviously what inspired you to start DevX and how DevX came and function?
Well, I came back from UK back in 2015. Right, I did my masters there. I worked there for a couple of years, and obviously the purpose of coming back to India was to start a business. Right, I mean that was always a fact. That's why
So at what age you came back?
26.
Okay.
And then 27, that is 2015, with the same co-founders, we started a business which was into hire, train and deploy model. So the likes of giants like Infosys, Capgemini, Tech Mahindra used to be our clients, wherein we used to train people on their modules and then provide them temporary staffing. However, we realized that at the age of 27, that was very boring as a business in nature. Because when you get up in the morning, you need something to thrive upon. You need challenges at that age, because the hunger was always there. It was not only money, it was not only wealth that pushed us to get into entrepreneurship. It was intent to make something big as a brand.
So in between, sorry to interrupt, but in between I'll ask the question. So how does a hunger matter in founders?
Well, hunger is defined from multiple angles, right? I mean, and it is very subjective in nature. If I put it in perspective, a rupee might be achieving a rupee outcome might be hunger for somebody. Achieving a 100 rupee outcome might be hunger for someone else. So it is very subjective in nature.
No, I'm asking in terms of growth. If you're thinking for growth, so because this is not question for me, this is question for startup founders, because I've seen couple of companies or not couple of companies, many companies.
Right.
If you don't have hunger or if you don't have fire,
correct,
that doesn't make any sense in doing business. When we talk about business, if it's a 9 to 6 job, that's all done. But what you talk about fire, so I took
But so even from a growth perspective, our objective of starting DevX or thinking something on these lines was to move in a direction wherein we can scale this multifold. We can scale this multiple cities. We can probably go to bed because we are tired, not because it's time to sleep. That's the passion that we wanted. That's the effort that we wanted. And we wanted growth at any cost. And doing growth at any cost comes with a lot of challenges.
True.
There are a lot of struggles that gets associated with it. Your office environment is always hustling, right? Because you're doing and managing a lot of multiple things. So that was growth definition for us. However, growth can also be patient. Growth can also be stable. Growth can also be achieved in terms of percentages or X's on a year-on-year basis. Again, that is very subjective in nature. Growth need not come at every cost or any cost. However, we wanted to achieve it at that pace. Rather than growing at 120% year on year, I could have stabilized myself and grown at 20%, 30%. That's also growth.
True.
Cumulatively, if I could have seen that in 10 years, that's like almost 400% of growth if I do it 20% year on year basis. But for us, growth was like 150%. That is how we used to define it. And that is where we wanted to get into. And that is what gave birth to DevX.
Okay.
That is how we started it.
How has DevX evolved over times?
So we are in the business of managed office spaces. So this industry is called flexible industry. Flex is the word that we kind of use for the entire industry. When we started back in 2018, there was a wave of co-working spaces. Back then it was the same scenario wherein we adopted something which was very popular back in US. So 2015 is when the wave hit in India. I still recall 91 Springboard, AWFIs, which is a listed entity now, Innovate, which got acquired by OYO. They all started back in the same era, 2015, 2016, which was largely adopted from something which was done back in US by a brand called WeWork.
Okay.
WeWork honestly glamorized the traditional boring office business. They literally made it very sexy, and they transformed the way offices are consumed. And it was a way. There were some issues pertaining to the founder doing some things which were incorrect, but the model was extremely successful. And the same thing was adopted in India as well. So, it was targeting larger corporates which had exposure to US and which knew something like WeWork was there, and hence it became a need in India. So all the co-working spaces were largely adopted by global organizations which had headquarters outside India. Second, it's targeted startups, because as a new age entrepreneur, you always get adopted to something which is fresh in nature, which is aesthetically right, and it gives you a feeling of being part of a larger community. Because while you're starting a business, you need a strong network and people which are around you. So these two target audiences gave a birth to co-working spaces back in 2015. A lot of brands raised external capital and grew faster than ever. It was limited to tier 1 cities. So the idea for us was to do something for tier 2 cities, and that is how we were born. We pivoted from co-working to managed office space, because that is how consumption of office spaces started happening as a country. The growth that we have seen in the last 4 years as an industry has been unprecedented, It has been more than 4x growth that we have seen in the last 4 years. Just to help you with the numbers, 2018 is when the entire industry, the flex industry, was only 2 to 3% of the entire leasing industry. So just to put it in context, if there's 100 rupees ka lease happening in India, 2 or 3 rupees ka lease was being done by the flex office space player. That number today while we speak is 21 to 22%. That's the growth that we have seen in the last 4 years, 5 years of time frame. And that largely has been contributed by managed office spaces.
Okay.
So in the first target audience, which was by co-working spaces, we missed the larger strata of business entrepreneurs or businesses, which was MSMEs, SMEs and enterprises of India. First generation entrepreneurs, family businesses, those were all missed out in co-working because you don't get privacy, there was possibility of data theft, you don't necessarily need community engagement as mid-sized enterprise companies. All of these gets answered in managed office spaces. So that's managed office space is nothing but a build to suit model for a larger enterprise client. So if I'm looking for an office space of 300 people, I'll come to a player like DevX. DevX would design it, build it as per their specification, as per their requirements, as per their brand guidelines, and deliver it to them. And after that, manage it on behalf of them.
Okay.
Provide them all the housekeeping facilities, tea coffee services, and engagement activities, so that they focus on their work, on their operations, while the infrastructure piece is taken care by us. And that is where the entire growth of the industry happened after 2021.
Okay. So, what sets DevX apart from or other than co-working or managed offices? Means what else DevX do?
So, what sets us apart, probably the moat for us is setting up into tier 2 cities. Larger players today while we speak are present in tier 1 cities.
Okay.
Largely Pune, Hyderabad, Bangalore, Chennai, Mumbai, Delhi NCR. This is where the larger strata of the service providers or operators or companies are set up there, because that's where the larger demand is. So Pune, to put in context, does 9 to 10 million of leasing on an annual basis, while cumulatively tier 2 all the cities would not be doing that number. But we felt that there's still a need in that. So a city like Ahmedabad, which does close to 1 million square feet of leasing year on year, did not have any player of such scale back in 2018. The closest competition was a 50-seater co-working space, and the first center that we started was a 700-seater. That was like 10 times, 12 times larger than the existing player. So we realized that tier 2 cities need something of this strata and the size, and that is where our moat lies. So we're the largest in Ahmedabad, we're the largest in Baroda, we're the largest in Jaipur, and that is how we position ourselves. We're the largest in Rajkot. Our centers in tier 2 cities would give us the size wherein entry of a competition or a competitive player would be very difficult.
True.
And that makes it as a primary choice for any enterprise companies that is looking for an option of a managed space player in those cities where we are present.
So, are you available in tier 1 as well, or you're not focusing tier 1, you're focusing
So we across India, we're there in 11 cities. We have close to 8.5 lakh square feet of area that we manage. That's roughly around 12,000 seats. In that, the split is 6 cities are in tier 2 and 5 cities are tier 1 cities. So we do have a presence in tier 1 cities, but that's largely to have a presence. The majority of the business happens in tier 2 cities.
Okay. How do you help startups beyond just providing office spaces?
Honestly, startups comprise of very less number of revenue stream for us when it comes to office space. So when we started the business, the objective was to support enterprise clients take up offices with us, and the second objective was to support early stage startups by virtue of investing in them and also by helping them or getting them connected to larger enterprise accounts. So these are two revenue streams for us. The second revenue stream, which is investments into startups, till date we have invested into 16 startups, and then what we do is we nurture them to scale up further. We help them connect to businesses, we help them generate revenue, we help them strategize. On few of the startups that we invested into, we sit on the board as well.
Okay.
In order to ensure
So you have board seat as well?
Yes. We do have a right to take board seat in majority of the startups that we invest into. I think we have exercised into 4 or 5 of them.
Okay.
How we help them is, as I mentioned, getting them connected to the right accounts which can give them business. So our focus area is B2B startups. We do have few of the D2C brands as well as our portfolio, but that's like odd 2 or 3 investments. Largely focus is B2B enterprise focused startups that we invest into, so that we can help them grow, because that is where our business lies into. Fortunately, we took an exit in the first 3 startups that we invested into. The first one itself gave us an exit, and that venture was acquired by Spinny, which is the largest second car marketplace in India today while we speak, and they acquired that brand, and from that we got an exit. Second one was a company, a fintech venture based in Mumbai, wherein a private equity player entered and they gave us an exit. And third one was a D2C brand, wherein the founder itself gave us an exit when the brand was picking up, and their family itself invested into the business and they gave us an exit. However, things are not always rosy. We have seen 2 of our startups fail as well. So out of a portfolio of 16, we have an accurate result on 5, when 3 has given us an exit and 5 have closed down the business, and we have written off the investments in those ventures.
Okay. So what resources does DevX offer to its members?
So from an enterprise accounts, one of the primary need why they come to us, or I would say the drivers for this entire industry, is the fact that there is one single solution provider which is covering large quantum of infrastructure challenges that you as a user face. Second, we give you the client gets the access to multiple infrastructure facilities across different cities. So after COVID, what happened was, in order to capture the right talent, companies started going to cities where their talent was. So from a work from home situation in 2020, we reached to work near home situation in 2022 itself. So that enforced larger technology companies, larger clientele of ours, to go to cities and have their presence where their employees or to be employees are residing. And that is where the second driver for us adopting us came into picture. So we solved 2 larger challenges for our members. One is infrastructure headache, and second is single service provider across multiple cities. Rather than interacting with multiple developers or investors for their real estate needs, they are relieved from their challenges, that challenge or that issue, and they have a single provider or solutions across multiple cities.
So now, Umesh, by coming on your point, so tell us something about your life. How you started, what was your schooling journey, what was your college journey, and all.
The school now looks to be a distant future. I did my schooling from Rajkot.
Is it?
Yeah.
So your family was in
Yes.
Rajkot?
Yeah, we are basically from Rajkot. I am born in Rajkot. I did my schooling from St. Mary's, and I am honestly proud and fortunate of passed out of that school. When I see a lot of St. Marians being connected and achieving larger feats in life, it makes us literally proud, and our alumni is very strong and interconnected as well.
So in between, I'll tell, even I am in St. Marian, but not from Rajkot. So I studied in St. Mary's, Uppleta.
Oh, okay. But that's also Rajkot district.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. So from Rajkot, I probably came to Ahmedabad, and the entire family shifted here, and did my graduation from here. And after graduation completion, I went to UK to pursue my masters, and stayed there for 3 odd years. Did a 2 years stint with a large manufacturing firm as well. So that is where my first corporate exposure came into picture. Up till now, obviously it was all family business understanding, friends, fathers, businesses, when you understand as to how the corporate or the business world thrives. My first actual corporate exposure was back in UK, wherein we understood as to how the businesses are operating. And there I used to manage marketing for them, which was my first exposure. And I was looking after their exports. So they used to manufacture clay pots, which was a residual output of the large manufacturing pipes that being manufactured by them.
Okay.
And I used to market the entire export division for them. Attended a lot of expos for them, which gave me a lot of exposure in understanding and interacting with global companies as well as individuals operating in multiple countries. That was a nice exposure for me. Came back to India back in 2015, and obviously the idea was to see as to how do we get into entrepreneurship. So for the first 6 months I was exploring as to what is the right business to get into. In fact, I did explore getting into quick commerce, which is now the thriving life for our country, everything being delivered in 10 minutes. Back then the ecosystem was not mature enough to adopt that thing. We did immense research on how we can deliver this, how we can start this. 6 months later we thought that this cannot thrive from Ahmedabad. We're still kind of very early into that domain, but happy and proud that the similar segment and similar industry is kind of mushrooming very fast today while we speak. And in that process of identifying as to what we should be doing, I was consulting with an SME in Ahmedabad, wherein I was looking after their growth and sales, and I met my co-founder Parth Shah, and 3 months, 4 months later into that consulting assignment, we started engaging and discussing with each other, and started pivoting as to what can be done, exploring ideas, what to do, how do we start, where do we start, what is the right business idea. So obviously discussed many ideas before we are standing here today. So the first thought process was that hire, train and deploy model business, because that was the core business, right? I mean, it was not required to have external investment. We put in our own capital, and we met my third co-founder. So Parth and Rushit have been connected with each other since ages. So their grandfathers have been friends like since donkey's years. They knew since lot ages. However, they never did business. So when me and Parth met, we found that there was something missing in terms of the complementary skill sets that we were looking for, and Rushit kind of filled in that. So the nature of three of us is such that we inherently kind of complement each other. I look after sales, growth, that is, I bring in the business, I bring in the revenue. Parth plans out where to use that money, so he's into designing, he's into operations, and then my third partner executes it. So he uses that money. So that is how inherently we kind of, it was a marriage made in heaven. And when we started that first business, we realized that this complementary skill sets is very useful for us. And when we took an exit in that first business, we started DevX. And since then it has always been day and night. We kind of think only about this venture as to how do we scale it up. We never would be thinking as to what do we do after this.
So how has your IT and real estate experience shaped your approach?
I think that the previous experience of into technology, that helped us thrive into this segment.
Okay.
Because the larger segment or the larger client base that we cater to is IT and ITES. Majority of the service providers into this segment are from real estate industry, right? So those service providers do not understand technology. Those service providers do not understand IT. While we had a different approach, we came from IT and moved into partial real estate segment. So when I used to interact with client, I understood what they are speaking. I understood what their requirement was. I realized that I can improvise what they are asking for and tell them upfront that this is what you're missing in the infrastructure that you're designing. And that gave us an extra edge. So when a client or a lead, to say so, when a lead, let's say of 200, 300 people is looking for an office infrastructure, they obviously would be speaking with multiple service providers.
True.
When they come to us and speak to us, they are able to relate with us. They are able to understand that this is not somebody from real estate background providing us a solution. This is somebody from us, amongst us, who is providing this an extra edge of solution. So I understand as to what is Cat6, I understand what is a networking diagram, I understand where their server requirements would be, I understand where the firewall requirements would be. So these sort of conversations helped us give us an extra edge. So I was able to optimize my real estate understanding. I was able to optimize and pass on that learning to IT industry, which gave us that extra bit of advantage as compared to our peers. So I think that is a strong beneficial past experience that helped us a lot.
How do your marketing and sales skill apply at DevX?
So I core look after sales.
Your core is sales.
Yes, I honestly do not understand anything beyond revenue. For me, client is everything. I am pathetic when it comes to operations. I would probably spill it over if I start looking after operations. My core skill set is business,
sales,
bringing and sales. And I am confident of the fact that anything and everything that is essentially surviving can be converted into bringing in business. Revenue is what I thrive upon. Revenue is what I breathe upon. Having conversations with clients is what gives me the booster to survive in life. So that is what, in a nutshell, is for me.
Okay. What did you learn from UK experience?
So as I mentioned, my exposure of interacting with global companies, my exposure with having interaction with individuals which are working globally helped me in realizing the patience that they bring into the table. The articulation skill sets of showcasing a same product which can be as base as it can be, but the presentation skill sets which they bring onto the table, that's immense. The storytelling skill sets is what I would put it across, is what I learned from my experience in UK. Secondly, my exposure there helped me understand that nothing can be achieved in a short time span. The patience that those guys bring in was of immense value, and that is where I realized that you can't achieve everything and anything in a shorter time span. Your vision board needs to be of 5 years, 7 years, 10 years of time frame, and that is where you can grow. You need to break that vision into smaller milestones so that you're always motivated to achieve those smaller numbers, but your planning, your thought process, your vision has to be for a longer duration. And these are the two core fundamental understanding which I derived from my experience in UK.
Okay. So I would ask something on mentorship and investment as well. Sure. What common mistakes do startup make early on?
When we started looking at decks, pitch decks from startup founders back in 2018, 2019, the B2C consumer or D2C brands largely adopted the fact that there's 140 CR population of India, and from there this is the segment that I'm targeting, which translates into, let's say, 50 CR of people, and that is my target audience. And that product value, let's say if it is 100 rupees, would multiply that with 50 CR number of audience, possible buyers, and that becomes my market size, which is not true, right? I mean, you can't derive your addressable market by the size of the population that we as a country have, right? Even the largest of the largest FMCG brands in the country have not been able to tap that quantum of volume. The penetration in tier 3, tier 4 cities requires different set of skill sets, different sort of distribution strategy. So what I feel is identifying the actual market size from a direct to consumer brands or a B2C brands was inevitably lacking in the startups that were coming up during the first wave from 2019 to 22, I would say so. Founders have learned hard way since then to now, and now you would have much more right addressable market showcased in their decks. That is one mistake that I often found out. Second, they used to pitch, they used to share their pitch decks to anyone and everybody that would say that I can invest. What I feel that when a founder is out to raise their funding amount, they should approach it in a sales manner only. You should create a target audience. You should define as to who is the right investor for me. You should define as to whether that investor has the ticket size to invest in this venture or not. You should define whether that investor or fund has invested into some other startup into the same segment or not. Excuse me. Basis all this understanding, you create a list as to whom you should approach, and that approach also has to be very strategic in nature. You can't just mass mail or cold emails expect an answer from all of them. Every VC or every fund would be receiving 600 to 1000 applications on a monthly basis on an average. They do not have the bandwidth to assess all of them. The right way is to identify a connect, see if somebody can introduce you towards them, and reference is where they would invest first, then a cold email being received from some odd startup founder. So these are two first mistakes that these founders would make. That is where I have kind of addressed them and see if I could help them in solving these two challenges.
So how do you balance guiding startups without overshadowing them?
Well, honestly, it comes naturally. I need to run DevX. I don't have much amount of bandwidth to kind of overshadow and run a different business. For us, we are very sure in saying that we are not investors, we are traders.
Okay.
When we invest into a startup, that's a portfolio for me.
Okay.
I look at it as a portfolio. I do have emotions. I do love the startups that we invested into, but I do not carry and keep it on my head and do not get attached to it. I am attached with DevX. Today, if somebody asks me to exit DevX, I probably might be crying. But today, if you ask me to exit from one of my startups, that is part and parcel of the journey that I got upon. So that's a pure play portfolio for me. The way you invest into equity stocks, if you exit in that, you do not get hurt. You make a profit or you make a loss. That's about it. You do get attached with promoters, founders, but that does not stop you from making a business decision on it. So driving another bus is not why we invest into startups. There is always a driver who is attached with that bus, and he is supposed to drive that. We are there to guide him, we are there to monitor him, we are there to give our guidance, we are there to help him wherever he needs the support. But we would never get on the steering and start driving the bus. That's not the business that we are into.
So, what do you look for when investing in startups?
Largely the check size that we put into or the stage that we enter into, largely it is the founders, right? We obviously ask for their business plan, we ask for the industry numbers, we ask the competitors numbers, everything like that you look at while investing into a venture. But core fundamental is that a person who's driving the venture, what complementary skill sets do founders have? What is the rapport that they have within each other? There are a few breakdowns for us. We typically do not prefer to invest into solo founder.
Okay.
We typically do not prefer to invest into venture which has 4 founders or more than that, because we feel that's a recipe of disaster. So we kind of prefer 2 founder team or 3 founder team. That's a right recipe. That is what we believe. We are not saying a solo founder cannot do right. It is our mechanism to filter out ventures which we would assess or wherein we would give time to make sure that we invest or not invest. We only have sufficient time to assess startups. So more stringent filter criteria as we put in, the more filtered ventures we get into.
How important is mentorship for startups?
Well, I mean, a startup or uh, a bigger enterprise, mentorship is always important, right? From your early days of schooling to doing business at a scale, not so scale, I think you should have somebody whom you can rely upon for an unfiltered advice whenever you want as an individual. Uh, be it business, I mean professionally, or be it personally. If you have few people in your ecosystem or in your first circle with whom you can have an unfiltered conversation and expect an unfiltered advice, that is more than anything else in your life. So mentorship is inevitable. Recently, startups have started kind of putting a value to a mentorship. I think if somebody is there to help you grow, it would come with any sort of baggages attached to it. It would come with the fact that with the right intention to help you grow. There's no requirement to give or allocate a mentorship equity. If the person is right individual, if they have the right intent, they would invest in you and help you grow, and with the right mentorship. Just mentorship equity, I probably would shy away from doing it.
Okay. Can you share an example of a product you helped commercialized?
So the first venture itself that we invested into was at a POC level, which wherein they had not yet identified the PMF, I mean the product market fit. When they came to us, they were still figuring out how to develop the right product, which would have a paying customer. And there it took us good 3-4 months of time frame to reach to a stage wherein it it has a paying customer attached to it. So the first venture itself that we invested into, we did a joint GTM strategy. We defined a joint GTM strategy to ensure that the product reaches to the right hands at the right speed with the right price point itself.
What makes a strategic partnership successful?
Um, for us as a venture, if I look at it, it is inevitable to have the right set of partners, because we as a business have multiple stakeholders, right from investors to our vendors to our service providers to our developers or to the investors of whom we take up the space, the landlords to say so. So we have multiple stakeholders at every juncture of our business. So it becomes imperative for us to have right set of partnerships. And since we are across multiple cities, you cannot do everything at your own, and that is where the need for the partners arises. Our landlords are our partners, our vendors are our partners. We do not look at them just as a transaction to do certain tasks. Each of them, each individuals, us as an organization would know them. Us as an organization would be aware as to who is in their family, what do they do on a daily routine basis. It might not percolate to every individual within DevX, but few of the touch points with all the stakeholders would be aware as to what they do in life.
So, some of your personal insight you would love to have. What keeps you motivated as an entrepreneur?
Well, I mean the intent, the hunger, I mean that doesn't seem to be end. We still have a lot of challenges as a venture which needs to be solved. We still have a lot of growth plans which needs to be achieved, and obviously we still have a lot of responsibility towards our shareholders and investors which needs to be fulfilled. So these are few righteous parameters which ensures that we wake up daily in the morning with the same zeal and same push and same motivation on a day-to-day basis to drive this business to a scale that we have envisioned upon.
How do you stay adaptable in such a fast moving environment?
Well, when we started back in 2018, it was a thriving, growing industry, right? So we firstly adopted the challenge of doing the business in tier 2 cities, right? We tweaked our GTM strategy to ensure that we are in front of the right customer who can adopt the co-working space, which was not a thriving word in a tier 2 city back in 2018, right? That was first challenge that we took upon. Second, the external environment threw COVID on this business. Commercial office spaces were assumed to be dying, and we were still paying salaries back in 2020 in the peak of COVID. Never ever a thought of closing down the business passed on the brains, even though the external world was speaking just the fact that commercial office spaces would not survive. But we still had the passion and the motivation to keep it alive and growing. And all of them in this industry who survived that phase are now mushrooming and growing at a faster pace than ever. So I think adaptability to the external environment is inevitable. We are today in the midst of global uncertainties to the highest level that I would have seen in my entire lifespan. We can be any time in the middle of a war. We can be any time in the middle of economic uncertainties in some part of the globe. We are now probably getting into a discussion wherein from a connected world, we intend to be disconnected world, wherein trade wars might come into picture. So there are a lot of uncertainties while we speak, right? So we need to be aware of all of these and ensure that all of these have been accompanied or ensured and are being part of your business plan. And these factors should play some other role while you're making strategic decisions, or while you're defining your vision, or while you're taking risks. So I think it is inevitable for us to adopt external and the internal risks that are thrown nowadays to the businesses.
What's the biggest lesson you have learned as an entrepreneur?
I think the first lesson that and we are blessed on those lines, all three of us were kind of attuned to the same thought process, that we are not starting something for a shorter duration, right? All our fathers were into business, and all of them probably gave us the same advice, that you need to survive for 1,000 days. Unlike today, wherein a startup founder probably is looking for results in less than 6 months or a year's time frame, and they want to kind of achieve $1 billion valuation in less than 12 months. We started this business on the same thought process, that we want to survive hook or crook for at least 1,000 days. Whatsoever happens in life, we are going to do that. And I think that is paid off. So patience is what I think is one of the strongest lesson that I would have learned. We should not be making short-term, decisions basis the short-term hindrances or the challenges that are thrown to us. We should be making decisions keeping in mind the long-term or the fundamentals on why the business was established. So 1,000 days patience, I think, is where one of the first and foremost learnings that I had as an entrepreneur. Second is the fact that you can't grow alone. You can't scale alone. Irrespective of howsoever intelligent, skillful, connected you are as an individual, this is a team game. This is similar to cricket, right? I can't be a superstar or a rock star and make my team win. I need to ensure that I have a strong leadership skill set to ensure that all the people that are associated with me grow along with me in the same direction, have a similar mindset as we have as founders, and put efforts in the same direction. Otherwise, it can be like 20 people running in one direction, 50 people running in different directions, then you are having a tug of war within the same company, which can make company grow nowhere. So that's the second learning for me. The leadership skill set and the team game. This is not an individual or a rock star, one take all sort of a game. It has to be a joint cohesive effort to make this entity or your business grow faster. So patience and team building and team bonding are two virtues or two attributes, I would say, which I have learned in the last 6-7 years of time frame.
So, Umesh bhai, now as we say, we come on at the last thing of our podcast, and that is rapid fire or one word question. So, first thing coming in my mind is exposure or experience,
Experience.
leadership style in one word,
Leading from the front.
biggest learning from UK,
Ah, a global exposure.
most rewarding part of being an investor,
Most rewarding part of being an investor. Exposure to diverse industries.
SaaS mobility or cloud kitchen,
SaaS.
key quality you look for in a founder,
Um, the patience and the integrity piece. Whatsoever happens, if integrity goes, you can't survive as a human.
go to business growth strategy,
For which business, any industry,
as in startup.
digital has to be the one.
Okay. Biggest entrepreneurial challenge.
Oh, you have too many things on your plate.
One habit you can't live without.
DevX.
Best advice you have ever received.
My father's advice. Doing business, I mean, ensuring keep a patience of 1,000 days.
Success in one word.
I think that is just a mystical thing that you're achieving.
Ahmedabad,
Olympics.
India.
Growth.
Thank you so much, Umesh bhai, for your super insight.
Thank you, Savan Bhai, for hosting me.
My pleasure. And this would help many of the startup founders. Uh, Many can connect to your words.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for giving your precious time.
Thank you, Savan Bhai. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Yeah.